Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. Today I want to talk about how pig fencing, while it's some of the most cheap fencing you can have compared to other farm animals, a lot of people are still spending a lot more money than they need to on heavy duty posts. And I want to show you all an alternative that we've come up with that works really well here on the farm. So let me feed the hogs and we'll get into it. Pepper, where are your friends? Where is everybody? Well, if you've decided on your farm to set up more permanent pig pasture fencing like we have, fixed pastures that we rotate them through versus being wide open in a meadow and moving netting around, then most likely you're looking at heavier posts like T-posts or wooden posts, treated posts, locust posts, all those type of things. But as you see here, the issue with going with those posts, grass growing up around it, is we only need fence this high. You know, Noelle, she's not winning any hurdle competitions, so I don't have to worry about them jumping over. So I'm really only utilizing the bottom half of this T-post. And these things aren't cheap. And also when you take in uneven terrain like we deal with, you don't get as much span as you'd like because you can create valleys that a pig can go under, or you can run into humps that will ground out your fence. So you end up putting more and more posts in place. And that expense really starts to add up over time. Just realized I'm all blue today. Am I blue? So while all permanent fence pastures should have corner posts, heavy-duty posts, having the posts in between from span to span doesn't necessarily have to be this potent. This example here is a piece of 2-inch gas line, metal gas line that we've got all over this property. And the convergence coming down the hill to here, both of those fence posts are super heavy duty, but there's a long span in between them where we're not needing posts that heavy. So taking that into consideration, we found a cheaper option that allows us to only focus on the corners where we need them and then save money in the spans in between. So what we've come up with here on the farm is something I affectionately refer to as the Troy post. T-post, Troy post, get it? You guys feeling me? Anyway, it is just quite simply made up of 3 components. It is a 1/2-inch piece of metal conduit cut at 40 inches. It is a pin lock insulator type. It's got the little pin, drops in, and 2 self-tapping screws. And one of you all, viewers, sent me a big box of self-tapping screws. So a little long, they stick out, but it still works. So that is the Troy post. And what I like to do is I like to put the insulator in varying places, and that way it gives me more flexibility when I stick it in the ground. If I want something close to the ground, I can put it in this way. If I need something further up from the ground, I can put it this way. And I usually make up some of these and just keep them in the side-by-side. And as I'm going around doing some fence inspection, if I have an issue, then I can swap it out. So I've been using these for about, I think, a year now. And I may have even had these in a previous video. I really can't remember. I've done 780 some videos now. But so over the past year, I've been able to test them and just see how they've been holding up. And here's the pros that I have with this new post. Well, the first is it drives in super easy. Since it's rigid conduit, obviously it's very hard, and I can use either my hammer or a T-post driver to knock it in. Even with the insulator on, the insulator does not get in the way of the T-post driver. But since it's so short to handle, usually a couple whacks with a mallet, or if you want to really protect the ends, even put a block of wood over, knock it in, and you're good to go. So it drives super easy. Not a lot of surface area that has to be driven into the ground. Another point is I expect them to last a very long time. It's galvanized metal. This is exterior grade conduit for electrical work. So it's made to be outside. And it can handle being out in the weather, being galvanized, and of course being a nice, thick, decently heavy duty piece of metal. Along those same lines, being as rigid as it is, it's not going to warp or bend as some of those cheaper fiberglass posts do if we're in a hard angle. So if my fence line's coming here and I got to do a hard bend, then I can stick that in there and I don't have to worry about over time that thing bending into shape or bending out of shape and curving over. If I drive it deep enough, it won't even get a gangster lean to it. Obviously, it's super easy to carry around. You know, in the side-by-side being 40 inches and being this small, I could toss a bunch of them in the side-by-side. My goodness, I could have 10, 15 of them in here and not lose cargo space. With the T-post, you know, a 5-foot T-post, that obviously takes up a lot of room. They're much heavier. I can grab a bundle of these, toss them over my shoulder, and hit the hill if I have to. Whereas if I was taking 5 T-posts up that mountain, I'd be sucking wind by the halfway up there. I know you're thinking, well, Troy, you'd be sucking wind if your hands were empty. Yeah, you're probably right. Another thing I like about this is it gives you unlimited insulator positioning. The simple fact that we're dealing with a piece of pipe, basically, I can set those screws wherever I want. I can go high, low, whichever direction I want to go. Now, T-post, they have those little nibs that you have to be up or down. Now, with a big fence, you're not going to have something you're dialing in, you know, that ½ inch. But some of these other posts, the cheaper fiberglass posts, yeah, there's a finite number of positions where you can set your fence. And then, as I mentioned already, even fine-tuning, you can fine-tune it by driving it higher or lower, or like I said, since I'm mounted offset, then I can just turn it over. That's why I like these pin insulators, because they can work this way with a pin on the top, but they also have a latching mechanism, so if you're putting the pin in from the bottom, they still function. They're not going to just fall out. And one thing that may seem kind of odd, but around here, at this time of year, it comes in very handy, is they're visible. They're not green like T-posts. And everything around here right now is green, soon to be brown. But when I look down my fence, it's like, is that a T-post? I can't remember where I have T-posts and where I don't. You know, T-posts have that little bit of white on top. These things being galvanized, especially in the sun, they really stand out. Even when they start to patina and get that gray color, they still stand out between the brown and the green we have here. And probably what's the most important thing, and kind of wraps around the title of this video, is that these are much cheaper. These are almost half as expensive as a T-post configuration. So let me show you. Let me give you some numbers here. So if we were to take the smallest, and by smallest I mean the shortest T-post that you can buy in my area, I don't know if some of you guys out west have pygmy T-posts or what, but a 5-footer is the shortest T-post available in our box stores. So a 5-foot T-post at the time of shooting this video was $4.19. I know some of you guys would be like, man, I'd kill to be able to get a T-post for that price, but it just is what it is here. Our pin lock insulator that clips on a T-post are 32 cents each. So you take those two components together and you've got a $4.51 fence post. Now if you do the Troy post, you buy one 10-foot stick of 1/2-inch metal conduit, which right now is $5.86, and you're going to cut that into thirds. So you're going to get 3 for 1 in that situation. So that takes that down to $1.96 per 40-inch stick. 2 self-tapping screws, I priced at 6 cents total. And then our screw-in fastener type pin insulator is 40 cents. So it's 8 cents more expensive than the T-post clip. But all in all, that comes together to $2.42. So $2.42 compared to $4.51. That's pretty substantial, especially when you look at a run of fence where you may be going a 1/4 mile one direction, take a 90 degree, and maybe go a 1/4 mile another direction. Yeah, that adds up quick. So you may be saying, well, wait a minute, Troy, if you're talking about cost, you're forgetting these guys. They're cheaper. And to that I say, whose video is this? Yours or mine? No. These things right now, fiberglass step-in posts, are $1.99. So we're looking at what, 42 cents more or 42 cents cheaper than the Troy post. But the thing I go round and round with these things on, this one's nice and pristine because it's new. But in about 3 months, the sun is going to oxidize these tabs so much that all it takes is one of my fat-nosed pigs to hit this wire once and it'll break his tab off. Or a deer to come jumping over and clip it and it breaks the tab off. Well, we've got 1, 2, 3 tabs at the level that I like before this thing is rendered useless. And you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but I'm not going to be using these upper ones. So it's these bottom 3 that really matter to me. And as soon as those tabs are gone, this thing's pretty much worthless. These things also can snap off easily when the whitetail hit them. Instead of just breaking the tabs, they'll sometimes shear these things off halfway through. And you saw, since our ground is so dry, these stakes are hard to get out, but the big thing now is me getting this thing back in without breaking it. Yeah, see? I'm afraid I'm going to break it off. Try to romance it in there. So if you're dealing with a lot of hardpack, you can't hammer one of these things in because you'll just splinter it. So these, while these are cheaper, I don't like them. Another thing, if I were to take the camera around the farm where I still have some of these, if we've got a bend in the line, so the line would turn and go this direction, then over time, this thing would start to warp over. It gets this bad bow to it, and we start getting slack building up. So I'm not a big fan of these. These things break way too easily. I would rather spend the additional 40-some cents to build a Troy post than deal with these ever again. So if you're looking to do permanent fencing, especially in uneven terrain like this, I strongly recommend giving the Troy post a try. In this situation where we took one big pasture this year and we busted it into two because I just put this angle in, I only have one T-post. So here's my biggest singular expense. Big fight. Biggest singular expense is right here. But running uphill towards you guys where you're standing is another corner post. But I've got 1, 2, 3 Troy posts in because I've got this arch. And it keeps the fence from touching the ground in those points. Same thing here. We're going over the hill. And we're going up a little hump and then down steep over a hill. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Troy posts before I get down to the big tree that I'm tied off to. If that was T-posts, yeah, there's almost $25 right there. Instead, we're only looking at, what, $10, $12? So comment below and let me know what you think. Shoot some holes in the Troy post, if you will. You may think, well, maybe there's going to get water down in the tube. Yeah, there's a chance you'll have standing water, but even in the long run, I think that's going to pay off. Also, if you're looking for some Red Tool House hats, we do have them on our online store. We ship directly from here. No middleman, nothing to get bogged down in. We've got all that taken care of here in our own inventory. So if you'd like a hat like I'm wearing, minus the pig mud and the sweat, although I guess if you wanted one with pig mud and sweat, we could work something out there. But go to our store, store.redtoolhouse.com, and under apparel you can see our hats. We've got some in stock. Well, I appreciate everybody watching. I pray you have a great week. Take care.